Okay. Small moment beforehand while I fade down the title. And I say hello, everybody, and welcome to the Escapist Movie Podcast. My name is Jack Packard.
I'm Darren Mooney.
Hi, I'm Matthew Razak. I'm news editor for movies at Escapist, and I run the website Flixus.com.
And we appreciate you joining us, Matthew. What a fantastic week to join us. You know why? We're talking about all the hot new big blockbusters. Wait, I'm sorry. I got that confused. We're talking the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special, which will inevitably lead into the original Star Wars Holiday Special. And then we are going to discuss Netflix's Christmas movie extravaganza is the only way to describe it, specifically the Christmas Princes trilogy. 3 fantastic films. I can't recommend them enough. We're going to do a deep dive into The Christmas Prince, The Christmas Prince 2, The Royal Wedding, and The Christmas Prince 3, The Royal Baby. Superb holiday rom-coms. Hi and welcome. This is the Escapist Movie Podcast. Let's get right into it. I just got so excited about talking about The Christmas Prince that I almost forgot what our first topic was.
Did you have a bit of a mental block?
And hold on, let me decouple those bricks. The Lego Star Wars Holiday Special, available on Disney Plus now, is I recently did a 3-minute review of it. It should be up shortly. It's fine. It's like a perfectly acceptable 40 minutes to put on for your children who like Star Wars and like Legos. Beyond that, it's kind of a mess, but that's what it is.
Yeah, I think watching the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special, which is an incredibly ungainly brand synergistic title, but while watching the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special, I was very much taken by, how much of it was transparently, arguably, like the mission statement for what has become Star Wars at the moment, which is, this is brand synergy, basically. So the idea of all this is that, here are all of your familiar Star Wars elements thrown together into, like, a Star Wars recognizable shape. We're going to make lots of jokes, but they're only going to be safe jokes, because they're jokes that we've all made before, about how, isn't it hilarious that Kylo Ren didn't wear a shirt in The Last Jedi? That's an original hot take. But even things like, there's a moment in the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special that really sums it up for me, which is the moment where the characters are hurtling through time and space, dropping through portals from one famous kind of historical Star Wars moment to another, from one sequence, one recognizable set of characters, one iconic moment, and they're literally just open on Tatooine during that iconic moment of Luke staring out at the sunset into Tatooine, that great moment from Star Wars, and the Star Wars universe just opens itself out and vomits continuity on top of him. And like that's my big iconic kind of takeaway from like the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special, and kind of like the idea of brand synergy that runs through it. Because the tagline for the trailer for it was, "The past is the best present," which is arguably a mission statement. Again, I know we don't like to talk too much about The Rise of Skywalker because it's a painful experience for all of us. But, that idea of kind of nostalgia and the idea that Star Wars should be nothing more than previous Star Wars things that you've seen collided together and combined in such a way as to stoke your nostalgia. The Lego Star Wars Holiday Special just really feels like that as a mission statement for 40 minutes,
100%.
I completely agree. I think it reminded me of there's a Simpsons quote when I think it's Milhouse. He says, "Remember Alf? He's back, but in Pog form." This felt like, remember Star Wars? It's back, but in Lego form, because it's just over. Every scene was like, "You like this, right? Here it is again," but with Lego people.
Right. It's only the part of Star Wars you like. It's right. Hoth, it's Tatooine. We're not going to talk so much about The Last Jedi except for the Porgs, because everyone agreed that they liked the Porgs.
And the shirtless Kylo Ren, which you lose somewhat the effect of in brick form, I would argue, but it's what you like.
Right. It's all the things that everybody likes as a subtle reminder that you can rewatch all of the Star Wars saga right now on Disney Plus,
You don't even have to
including new episodes of The Mandalorian.
no need to even switch streaming platforms anymore. You're set.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that's the thing is that like you look at I think there was some analytics report from this week that demonstrated that like, and again, not to get too far away from the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special because there's so much rich material to discuss there. But like there are analytics reports from earlier this week that noted that the references to the Clone Wars and Rebels in The Mandalorian, so the name Ahsoka Tano in the Heiress, I think, and the mention of like where is Grand Admiral Thrawn in the Jedi, have both apparently actually driven users to rewatch or watch the Clone Wars and Rebels on Disney streaming, which is very much exactly what it's designed to do. Because the whole point of like a Disney streaming service is that, you know, you don't want people doing what they did with the first season of The Mandalorian, which is this huge sign up on the release of The Mandalorian, and then this huge drop-off once it ends because there's nothing else on the service that you want to watch.
Right.
What you want is you want them to watch The Mandalorian and go, well, sure, there's not going to be another season for about another 8 months or so, so yeah, let's binge watch the 5 seasons of the Clone Wars that we have on there.
That Ahsoka Jedi, who I know nothing about, sure seemed cool. I wish there was something I could watch with her in it. Oh, wait. Exactly. And you know, like, I think this is a very cynical take, and it's a very like it's like the dirty, grindy business end of film and TV and streaming platforms, but it's just laid out so bare with the Star Wars Lego Holiday Special that that's really all you can talk about is, you know, the tie-in Lego merchandise, the Advent calendar, the Star Wars Lego Advent calendar
the Advent calendar that is sitting right next to me right now that I got for my son because
it's in my house as well for my kid as well because they love Lego, and this one has Darth Vader in an ugly Christmas sweater. Who wouldn't want that? But it's a commercial. It's a commercial for Disney Plus. It's a commercial for Lego, and that's the end of it, right?
Yeah, I think what most struck me about it was kind of the idea that the basic structure of the show is Rey is having a crisis of conscience. She's having this kind of identity crisis about training Finn as a Jedi, which is grand. That's a standard Christmas movie trope. You have a character who's going through this identity crisis. And again, it's very, very obviously riffing on something like A Christmas Carol. Yes. So she goes to a Jedi temple and she wants to communicate with the Force and use the Force to find a way to teach her to be the teacher that Finn needs her to be. And again, that's a standard holiday Christmas movie trope. What's interesting about it, though, is that despite the fact that it borrows the core structure of A Christmas Carol, it's notable that there is no Ghost of Christmas Future in all this. Like, the entire premise of, like, the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special is, like, A Christmas Carol, but what if it was only the Ghost of Christmas Past and maybe the Ghost of Christmas Present if he got to hang out with the Ghost of Christmas Past, because that's the guy that we really love, right? There's a moment where, like, Rey gets dropped into the trench run from, like, A New Hope, and she's like, we saw Luke blow up the Death Star, and then she pauses, she goes, no, we helped Luke blow up the Death Star. And it's like, and again, this feels like it's arguably an extrapolation of what Star Wars has been doing for a long while, because like you could argue that a large proportion of Star Wars post A New Hope has been, didn't you like when Luke blew up the Death Star? Because you get rehashes of it in like Return of the Jedi. You get rehashes of it again with Starkiller Base in The Force Awakens, and you arguably get it multiple times when they just start wafting Star Destroyer weapons. Death Star weapons onto Star Destroyers in the Rise of Skywalker.
Yes.
Can I defend for a moment Lego brand synergy though? Because it has also delivered some great stuff, right? The Lego Batman movie is funny. The Lego movie is funny, right? With quality writers and people who put the time and effort. I'm sure time and effort went into the Christmas special, but you know, who really commit to it, it can work. The video games, right? A lot of the Lego video games really are spot on with their humor and their comedy, and so like it's almost a little more disappointing for me that this was so kind of generic and throwbacky and just sort of referencing things and saying that's the joke, right? Because the Lego stuff can be so smartly done.
And like, I'll agree with that. And I think like it's even more insulting than this is a reference and that's the joke. The insulting part is it's okay that it's nothing but reference because oh, it's a joke, so that's the joke is the joke. It's like a layer on top of a layer of them saying this is a joke when there is no joke there. They are just referencing
the Family Guy problem, basically, you could argue. And again, you know, whether or not it's fair or not, a certain percentage of Family Guy jokes are largely, hey, you remember this thing? Let's recreate this thing and point at it. And large part of like the Lego, and again, like, and not to rain on the parade of like the kind of like Lego Star Wars Holiday Special as an idea. Like, there is something magical in that idea of being a child and, okay, a grown man sometimes as well. I'm going to put my hands up. And, like, having your little action figures and, like, doing the voices and having them kind of bounce off one another and being like, whoa, because I'm playing, I'm not George Lucas, I can have a lot of fun with this sort of thing, you know? I think, was it, like, you know, for Doctor Who's 50th anniversary special, I think one of the jokes they had was Stephen Moffat writing scripts by literally just bouncing Doctor Who action figures off one another and saying, oh, no! But, like, and, like, I think that there is a lot of fun that you can have with that. The only real issue that I have, and it's something that kind of like Matt made the point there, something that's present in other other Lego kind of like associated tie-in media that's not present here, is that those Lego tie-in media, like the Lego movie, the second part, even the Lego Batman movie, understand that a large part of the appeal of a child playing with toys, and particularly toys modeled on existing intellectual property, is not merely acting out reverentially what came before. It's not merely restaging sequences from movies that you love. It's putting your own twist on them, or pushing them further, or imagining these characters dropped into different scenarios and situations. And I mean, obviously in the Lego movie, you have the luxury of being like, well, you can have Batman drop into Star Wars and you can have some fun with that, which you can't do with the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. But you can at least say, well, you know, okay, maybe we could spend some time with the Canteen Band outside of time that they spent in the movies, outside of the literal scene in which they appear. Or maybe we could, you know, I don't know, spend some time with Palpatine, you know, on Christmas Eve on Coruscant, because we haven't seen that before, you know, something like that. As opposed to literally going, no, here's the climax of Return of the Jedi, here's the climax of Star Wars, here's the Hoth base siege from the start of The Empire Strikes Back. Like, that's my big kind of, that's where I think the gap is between the appeal of kind of like playing with figures and what this gives you, is that there's no childlike imagination. It's just kind of slavish recreation.
Absolutely. Like the brilliance of the Lego movie is that they face a mirror to action movie tropes, right? Is because it's all through the eyes of a child. All of the tropes are just a reference to the tropes themselves, and that's the point of the movie. Yeah. Whereas all of the references in Star Wars are the Star Wars Lego Holiday Movie Special is just a reference to Star Wars. It's not pointing a mirror at Star Wars and dissecting it in any meaningful way. It's just saying, hey, remember when they were on Hoth? Here's Hoth. Huh? You know, it's the thing that made like the Lego Movie 2, the Lego Batman movie very special is their ability, one, just to have an engaging story, characters who we care about, but two, the ability to reflect upon themselves, reflect on the nature of the relationship of Batman and Joker. That's a big thing in the comics and in Batman in general, his relationship to the criminals. So we have a goofy Lego movie that actually dissects their relationship. That's neat. And it also has, you know, goofy things happening in it. And yeah, unfortunately, and like obviously there's a lot of hate coming off here with the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. And it is better than The Rise of Skywalker. That like, to give it credit where credit's due, it's a lot better than The Rise of Skywalker. No, and it's a really inoffensive way to spend 40 minutes with your kids. You know, exactly. And so it's like the issue here is the just laid bare commercial cynicism of it, you know?
There's a moment where they're having Christmas on, like, the Millennium Falcon, and is it Max Rebo from, like, Return of the Jedi shows up and starts playing music, and and Poe is like, nobody's listened to his stuff in 30 years, which is a fair point when you've hired a dude to DJ your Life Day party, but the movie is like, no, Poe, you're wrong. The important thing is that he's old and people remember him, so know your fecking place before Lando shows up and puts you in it.
Right. You're lucky.
Again, by the way,
cut.
that's literally the ending of The Rise of Skywalker. Is basically, hey Poe, know your place before Lando shows up and puts you in it. And then the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special does it again, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah. Hey, be lucky we included Rose in this at all. No one likes her. At least the people on the internet don't like her. Other people like myself find her to be a fine character, but the people on the internet don't like her. So we can do the same to you, Poe. Right.
Can we talk about the? I'm blanking on the actress's name, which is terrible. But
Kelly Marie Tran.
Yeah, she was one of the only voice actors to return, and her character had like 2 lines and was still shoved to the side. I was sitting there like, what is going on? They couldn't even like. My fingers are crossed that it was actually like a snide commentary by the Lego creators to get her back and then do it again just to like, you know, somehow like stick it to Disney for shoving the character to the side the first time, but I seriously doubt that.
There's nothing that clever at play here.
Right.
I would love to see like the meeting with Kelly Marie Tran where they're like, you know how the last time we hired you, we put you on the side and we gave all your lines to Charlie from Lost because apparently my favorite detail about, and when I say favorite, my eyebrows are very high, but my favorite detail about the treatment of Rose in The Rise of Skywalker is that like J.J. Abrams complained that, well, there was just nothing for her to do in the movie, in the plot, because of the way that her scenes fell. And it's like, but hold on. Wasn't there like a new character played by Charlie from Lost who had a lot of lines in those scenes, and you could just have given that role to Rose, and sure, her part would have been multiplied 3 or 4 times. And Abrams came out and said, yeah, but I actually lost a bet to Charlie from Lost, so I kind of had to write him into the script. And it's like, wow.
I like that he's Charlie from Lost and not
Not Dominic Monaghan. Yeah. Sorry.
No, he's not a real person, but I like that you're choosing one fictional character over the arguably much more popular fictional character. So
I always get confused with Billy Boyd from The Hobbit for obvious reasons, so I was hedging my bets.
No, and you know, the amazing thing to me, this is a segue coming up, is that they managed to get all the way through the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special without once referencing the original Star Wars Holiday Special. Oh.
That was very intentional. Like, again, part of me suspects this is brand synergy at work, where the plan is very much on the part of Disney to strip. And again, this is something that like fans yell at George Lucas for doing with his kind of replacing and pasting over and constantly revising of the Star Wars franchise, where it's next to impossible to find the original unrestored versions because his preferred versions are in the ether now. They're just out there. But I think that what's interesting, you could argue, and I suspect a large part of the appeal of the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special for Disney is the idea of displacing something potentially harmful to their brand. So that now, whenever you Google Star Wars Holiday Special, what is the first result you are going to come back with? It's going to be this. And this has not drawn the same level of ire or controversy. It, will never have to be taken out of circulation because there's nothing that bad in it. And there actually isn't, to be fair. There's nothing that, we've been very harsh on it. There's nothing that bad in it. Like, it's not actually a terrible thing. It's we have been harsh. It's a fun way.
At times.
Yeah.
It's fine and inoffensive and everything fine. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I get the sense that what Disney are trying to do is perhaps displace the original in public consciousness. So it's like there never was a Star. What do you mean the Star Wars? We have the Star Wars Holiday Special. It has like Kelly Marie Tran in it. What are you complaining about? She's on the
Lego. It's
yeah.
on Lego.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, right there. You can watch it. Click it. I don't know why people are so obsessed with, like, I don't think there's anything inappropriate with Wookiees in this one. Just watch it and see yourself. Part of me wonders if, like, that's very much kind of, like, again, a brand synergy thing where, like, you can see Disney, again, concentrating the brand. The idea is, like, bring it all in under one roof. Make it so that all your Star Wars content is anywhere, and anything else that you might want simply doesn't exist. It never existed. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, and that's something I've always said about the original Star Wars Holiday Special, which is that we have that to blame for how much control Lucas demanded to have over Star Wars after that colossal failure. Because, I mean, even by holiday special standards, the Star Wars Holiday Special is above and beyond anything terrible. It's like, I mean, and I've seen a very Brady Bunch Christmas. I've seen like the contemporary holiday specials of the time, and a Star Wars holiday special is beyond bad. It makes it's an hour and a half of Wookiee talk, like real to goodness Wookiee talk. Which, you know, might have been a really funny gag at the time.
I'll have you know, it's
Was it?
avant-garde and experimental. Like, again, like this is the worst thing about the original Star Wars Holiday Special is that on the one hand, it is so weird, esoteric, and utterly unlike anything else you have ever seen, and there's no preparation for it. But on the other hand, it's also incredibly boring. It's so soul-destroyingly numbing. Yeah, well, I mean, like, there's a moment, because it's a holiday special, there's a moment where I think is it Art Carney has to distract a bunch of stormtroopers by showing them a Jefferson Starship performance. But because this is a holiday special, that means you as an audience member have to sit through 4 minutes of Jefferson Starship in your Star Wars holiday special. And there's a whole bunch of stuff like that where it's numbing and terrible and awful, which is just kind of, again, striking.
I think you said something, you said at the time, and, you know, it really feels like at the time they had no idea what Star Wars was. Like there was a misconception about why this was a success and how people felt about it and what it was going to become. And in fairness, yes, there was nothing like Star Wars, right? Right?
Oh, right.
Right. I don't know how they got to the Christmas special from that lack of understanding, but like, you know, at the time there was nothing like Star Wars, and they clearly needed more and wanted to capitalize on it, and they said, well, Christmas special, right? I don't know the boardroom meeting that led to it, but like that's clearly what was the thinking was in a time when there was nothing like it, and a complete misunderstanding of the brand and what fans were attaching to.
Yeah, well, the Star Wars Holiday Special, I believe, and Jack can probably correct me if I'm wrong here, how it originated is that when the original Star Wars was released, obviously, Lucas took a whole bunch of licensing money, which was very, very clever at the time, unheard of. The Fox were like, hey, yeah, sure, you can have that. Well, I don't know why you would possibly want that. There's no way that anybody's going to want to buy toys.
Who's going to buy toys from Star Wars?
So, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
What a crazy idea, right? But apparently they went on and they created so much demand that, like, the Christmas that the original Star Wars was released, many kids, and I've talked to people who've had this experience, many kids didn't actually get, like, their Han Solo or Luke Skywalker toys. They got little boxes which contain notes saying, you can collect your Luke Skywalker toy in June 1978, because the orders were that far in advance. They'd underestimated demand so much. So the reason why the Star Wars Holiday Special came up was because Christmas 1978 was coming up, and they were like, okay, look, we know that we underestimated demand last year. We are not going to do it this year. We're going to produce as many toys as we want. The only problem is we're worried that maybe Star Wars won't be as fresh in people's heads. So if you could make like something that would make Star Wars current and fresh again for the kids, and maybe like introduce a couple of characters that we could create new action figure toys for, like, I don't know, maybe a cool bounty hunter or something. I don't know. We're not going to just throw ideas out there at you. But, you know, if you could do that, then we could sell the toys at Christmas, leveraging off this, which is, again, it's fascinating. Like,
the first appearance of Boba Fett was in the Star Wars Holiday Special. That is very true.
And nothing says current and fresh like Bay Arthur.
Art Carney, thank you very much. Yeah, cooking. There's a cooking segment in it. It's like, which is like, again, this is the thing where Jack mentions, like, and he's right, to be absolutely clear. Jack is right when he says that this is so much worse than many of the holiday specials around it that I've watched. However, one of the very interesting things in approaching the Star Wars Holiday Special from the vantage point of like 2020 or even 2015, 2010, like any time in the past 20 or 30 years, is that the holiday special as it existed on American television in the 70s does not exist anymore, or at least it doesn't exist in the format that this resembles. So while this was a bad example of the format to start, modern audiences going back and watching this have no point of comparison whatsoever. They do not understand that, like, during the 70s, it was okay. It was, you know, something that happened every once in a while, that you got a cast of a beloved property and you had singers and performers and people who were hawking their wares and like B-list celebrities, people from 50s movies, come on and just do random variety show crap with them and then kind of shuffle off and pretend it never happened.
Why, let's see who's at the front door. Why, it's Miss Dolly Parton.
And because, like, that's the thing about that, like, not to downplay the weirdness of the holiday special, and we'll maybe talk about that in a moment, but I do think that, like, when you watch it with that distance removed, for an audience that has never watched, wow, it's Miss Dolly Parton showing up at our door at Christmas, how delightfully odd this is, it takes on an extra level of meta weirdness on top of it, because it belongs to a genre that just doesn't exist anymore, but is also Star Wars, which I find interesting. Now, I say interesting, you should not watch it. It's not worth your time. Like, this is not a defense of the Star Wars holiday special, to be clear.
Oh, can I say that it is worth your time? Like, it's for there is a certain sub niche of movie enjoyers, probably all of which are listening to this movie podcast right now, that watching, like, it is an experience. It is unlike anything you will ever watch. It's bad, and you're gonna want to, like, fast forward through parts.
Yes.
But, like, you know, just to say you saw it, right? Like, yeah, I don't want to, like, I don't want to condone rubbernecking at car accidents, but we all do it, and that's kind of what the Star Wars holiday special is.
I love the idea that, like, for Jack, it's his generation's version of, like, Dunkirk or something. It's like, I was there. I saw the Star Wars holiday special. Look at the light got out in my eyes.
I remember being around before the internet and, like, just hearing the rumor that, like, someone's friend's cousin had a bootleg of the Star Wars holiday special, and it was like, oh my God, we have to get there and see this, you know, like. Before the internet, it was a huge deal to even know that it existed. Yeah. And now you can like, there's probably a million rips on YouTube right now where you can watch it, and that's a special time. Yeah. You're not going to have a good time watching it.
Before we move on to kind of like the larger discussion around it, what I will say is, in defense, I am actually quite fond of the weird avant-garde Wookiee sitcom element of it. It feels very much like, if, like, listeners are familiar with, like, David Lynch's Rabbits, if you're familiar with that, which is the sitcom that David Lynch produced in the loosest possible term, starring a family of anthropomorphized rabbits watching television, Wookiees, like, the Wookiee elements of the Star Wars holiday special feel almost like that, where it's like, it's a sitcom, but we've taken out all of the English language, and we're counting on sitcoms being so generic, formulaic, routine, and paint by numbers that you, as an audience member without subtitles, can understand the tired jokes that we're going to make involving these characters as they, like, growl and moon and whine at one another. And, like, there's an element of that almost feels kind of postmodern. Now, it does go on far too long because it's a solid 10 minutes. But, like, there's a part of me that's like, this is how you decided you were going to sell toys in, like, 1978. I kind of admire the gumption of it a lot more than I admire, hey, it's Art Carney, Bay Arthur, and Jefferson Starship.
I don't know if I can be... art is all about, intention and reception, right? and so it's like, your read of that avant-gardeness is just as valid as the artistic intent, absolutely. But that's not what their intention was.
No, it wasn't.
They just said, Chewbacca doesn't speak English, he speaks Wookieese or whatever it is. So his family would too. And we're only going to have them speak Wookieese because, like, obviously they wouldn't speak English if they're around a bunch of Wookiees. It is absolute madness because you're watching extended sequences that goes on for 8 minutes. It's just people growling at each other. That's not even an avant-garde piece that I would watch.
It's not even kid-friendly, right? Because they don't understand that. It's like no. Also, that was a fantastic Wookiee voice.
It really was.
I don't know if you've done it before, but I haven't heard you do one. So
well, there you go. Yeah.
But I will say because I suspect I know what Matt's going to talk about, so we'll talk about that in a moment. But just very quickly, I'd like to note that Bruce Villainous, who I believe was Lucas's roommate at one point, wrote the screenplay for the holiday special and apparently worked really hard to get his name taken off it. But apparently when the idea of the Wookiees just doing their sitcom thing was pitched to him, he said, so you want a bunch of fat, hairy men just groaning and growling, eh? I can just put a camera in my bedroom for 2 days and we can get you lots of footage of that.
Thank you, Center Square.
Sorry, Matt, I cut you off.
No, that's fine. But yeah, so it wasn't even. I mean, so Wookiees talking are not kid friendly, and there's just all these other aspects of it, like we've gone through, that aren't kid friendly, including the.
I love that we
grandfatherly moment.
I love that we relegated like talking about this to Matt. I love that it's like Matt has to talk about the Wookiee porn.
And maybe that does lean towards that avant-garde kind of thing, right? I don't know. It's definitely boundary pushing. Maybe I am almost at a loss for words, right? Like, how does that get in there? Where's the writer's room? Where's the TV censor who's like, guys, aren't we selling toys here? Like,
well, so like because any sort of holiday special back in the day is a variety show, which means they have little comedian bits, they have musical acts, they have just a variety of talents come on to fill space all around a Christmas tree. Because you have that element, and because you have Star Wars, you need to find the bridge between Star Wars watching a variety of things, and so they do it with the television show, with a radio program, with a cooking show, with a ham radio at one point, and one of their ways to have a musical act on there was Grandpa Wookiee. Was it
Itchy? Is it? I think
Itchy. It might be Itchy. It might be Lumpy.
It's Atachikuk.
Oh, okay. So yes, Grandpa Itchy.
We're going with Itchy.
Puts on a pair of VR goggles so he can watch who is it?
Dion Carroll. It's playing Murmia.
Dion Carroll, a 70s disco musician, perform a very lusty, sensual song just for him. And he seems to be enjoying himself.
You're adorable. I am your fantasy. I am your pleasure. By the way, this reading does no justice to the words, to be clear. But I am your fantasy. I am your... Somewhere on the internet, people are getting very excited. I don't know who you are, but this is for you. I am your pleasure. This is our moment. Yeah.
Yes. It can only be described as a Wookiee watching pornography.
Oh, like the script is more explicit about it. Like at the end, Itchy is, and I quote, groggy with satisfaction. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
Man.
There's a joke in there about hairy palms, but I think we're more mature than that.
No, we are not. Absolutely not. But this is where it gets like... This is where it gets almost like to the point of confusing why did anyone say yes to this? How come no one said no at any given point of the production? Was Star Wars that big of a deal in the late 70s? I guess it was, right? Where no one felt that they could say no because Star Wars is such a hot seller.
Well, more than that, I think it's more what Matt said, which is nobody knows what Star Wars is, so there's no way... Can you imagine a suit in 1978 saying, no, this isn't Star Wars? Because then when he gets called on it in the meeting, he'd have to explain what Star Wars is, and nobody wants to be put in the spot like that, right?
And no one, like, canon? No one cared about canon, right? There's none of that, so, like... After the 3 movies and decades of books and Star Wars fans building this canon in their head... It looks even more ridiculous, especially when you've got Wookiee porn and random guest stars and stuff like that, because people are trying to shove that in to a fictional universe, right? Which in reality, Wookiee porn, probably a thing. So, like, maybe it's just really true, right? There's got to be porn in the Star Wars universe, and Wookiees
Death
probably
Sticks,
have
the
their
Death
own.
Stick guys. Yeah, the Death Stick guy probably deals it on the side.
I just love that you said in reality, like Star Wars, like in reality, as in referring to the reality of Star Wars. I just love it.
I believe they call it Rule 34, right?
Yeah. No, I just like Matt. I just love it that you're so into Star Wars that you're like, no, in reality. Like,
If we look at the social fabric of Star Wars, like, I mean, think about it. Like, just look at what we're given in the movies. There's a gap there, and Lucas wasn't willing to turn the camera towards it in the films. So I'm glad that the holiday special was able to point and focus and bring that to light and say what we were all thinking.
To me, like, the craziest thing about the Star Wars special is it takes place on Chewie's home planet, which is filled with giant tree houses. Yet, like, it's also a treehouse that's filled with an incredible amount of technology, which doesn't seem to make any sense whatsoever. Like, Chewie having a family in general is weird because he spends no time with his family. He spends all of his time with Han Solo.
Yeah, I mean, it's that 50s kind of sitcom vibe, which, again, I'm being very generous and I'm calling avant-garde, but it's actually probably just laziness and terribleness combined. But, like, it's the fact that, like, the Wookiee household in the tree, which from the outside looks so surreal and odd and unusual, and you look at it and you wonder how they must possibly live. And one of the great things about Star Wars is that it's full of elements like that, where you're like, how does this work? This thing that was referenced obscurely, and it's got to be bizarre and weird, and, like, the Kessel Run, what the hell was that? Who is Jabba the Hutt, that sort of stuff. But I love that, like, the holiday special then takes that and says, actually, if you look inside this gigantic treehouse populated by hairy people, it actually looks pretty similar to an American, family's home from, say, the 1950s through the 1970s. There's a fridge, there's a toaster, there's a microwave, there's a little portable television set. All the modern conveniences that you could expect in this galaxy far away a long time ago. I kind of like admire the lack of creativity or vision or ingenuity involved in that, where it's just like, so how do we think Chewbacca's family live? Well, they live in tree houses. Yeah, but beyond that, what's in your house, Frank? It's like, okay, fine, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, no, if anything, then we can look to the Star Wars Holiday Special as like the beginning of their lack of imagination. Like, they can't see past the original, because as soon as they start looking past the original, oh, Chewie lives on a forest planet that was mentioned in the original. Past that, it's just everything we already know.
Yeah.
Ooh, insidious.
See? Brilliant. Yeah, see? That's
There
it.
you go.
The Star Wars Holiday Special is just this wonderful postmodern, brilliant analysis that kind of like offers a commentary on where American pop culture was going. Really, I think it was ahead of its time.
It's ahead of its time. Where it's like what it was commenting on is the veneer of fantasy, right? Like the fantasy ends, and it's only it's only a construct. Yeah.
Well, I mean, think about like American 1978. You had the family, and again, I apologize for this, but Jack started this, so just to be clear. But think about American 1978. You have, at the moment, it's a nation that's just come out of Vietnam, Watergate. It's shaken to its core. You have this idea of domestic family life, and at home, everything appears to be perfect. There's a TV in every home. There's a toaster. There's a fridge. There's all the modern conveniences. There's even the possibility like virtual reality is going to be a thing in a couple of years. And with that, the home entertainment that's going to come with it, it's fantastic and brilliant. But if you look outside, the world is falling apart. There's Death Stars, there's rebels, there's empires, there's stormtroopers. Fascism is on the rise. Neo-fascism's on the rise in Europe. There's a Cold War raging. The galaxy, the universe, it's all falling apart. But as long as you have that little kernel of domesticity at its core, maybe, Jack, maybe we can hold it together.
As long as Grandpa's watching porn.
Couldn't have asked for a better button than that right there. Star Wars Holiday Special. There you go, everybody. By the way, I looked it up. It is freely available on YouTube right now. The original Star Wars Holiday Special. Watch it.
Skip around, though. Like, I would say you don't have to watch all of it. Particularly when a variety show performance starts, unless you're into it. And I suspect most people won't be.
And you
Feel free
won't
to
be, right?
Yeah. Feel free to jump around. Don't feel like you have to watch all of it. It's all fiber. Deeply unpleasant fiber.
Let's move on to what I feel is the more important topic for this podcast, which is a long, hard look at Netflix's own universe-spanning trilogy, The Christmas Prince. This was because The Christmas Prince was a 2017 Christmas movie, a Netflix original movie, relatively low budget rom-com in which a reporter, in an attempt to gain access to a very reclusive prince and royal family, poses as a tutor for the prince's young young sister.
Princess Emily.
Princess Emily.
I will
of
call you
course.
up on this. Yes, I mean, you can't just talk about a Princess Prince, Jack. Yeah. Don't respect the lore.
Canon.
Yeah.
I'm giving the blanket, the highlights exactly, and in typical romantic comedy fashion, ends up falling in love with the prince. The prince falls in love with her, only to have her dark secret revealed. But it all turns out fine in the end because it is a rom-com. They made 2 more of them. They're following the lives of Amber and Prince, whose name I forget because he's very bland.
Simon.
Amber and Simon.
Oh no, sorry, it's Amber and Richard. It's Richard II. Sorry.
Simon? Who's Simon?
Simon is the evil
Simon.
one. He's the cousin.
yeah.
And he's a count and not a duke, which frustrated me for the first 2 installments because there's no way that any royal family in Europe is going to let anybody's cousin be a count when they could be a duke.
That's fair. That's fair. But, this is very standard rom-com fare. It's cookie cutter to be, as mean and as pleasant as I can be. It's everything you would ever expect out of a Christmas-themed rom-com, and I love all 3 movies. Unironically, I have a soft spot in my heart for rom-coms, and this just scratched that itch. It's fantastic films.
It's impressive how cookie cutter they are, but how well they nail cookie cutterness, right? You can get cookie cutters and you're like, this is just, they're just copy paste, but they made good gingerbread cookies, right? It's like they cut out the cookie shapes, they're traditional cookie shapes, but it works for
every corner and curve is exactly where you think it's going to be, just like a good cookie cutter.
Yep, exactly.
I have a kind of a theory about this, which is so Netflix, right? And obviously these are Netflix movies. They're made by the Motion Picture Company of America, which sounds like it should be some sort of shell organization, but is not actually.
Right.
But so Netflix, and the way in which Netflix works and the way in which Netflix is a service that is designed to produce content, and lots of content. I think it was Jason Bailey who made the joke that Netflix is where great directors go to make their worst movie. But the idea that Netflix just pumps out this glut of stuff. So think about this year you had things like, say, The Old Guard, Project Power. You had movies like, say, Mute from Duncan Jones. You had movies like, say, The Cloverfield Paradox. You had movies, that Polar, even starring Mads Mikkelsen. Movies that you will completely have forgotten about because they're very generic, they're very formulaic, they're very routine. However, what I would suggest is that the Christmas movie genre, and particularly the kind of universe that Netflix have built, and let's be clear, it is not just a Christmas Prince. We're going to focus on a Christmas Prince here, but it is a larger genre that encompasses, and Netflix have just pumped out dozens of these in the past 4 or 5 years. So off the top of my head, there's been this year you had, was it the Jingle Jangle, A Christmas Journey, the one starring, or The Greatest Snowman, if you will, the musical starring Forrest Whitaker, Greatest Snowman. All right. You had Christmas Chronicles and Christmas Chronicles Part 2, aka What If Santa But He Fucked, starring Russell, starring Kurt Russell, which are very.
That is not an overstatement. That is I want to say they address that in. I haven't seen 2 yet, but in Christmas Chronicles they talk about
Goldie
it.
Hawn. Yeah, the fact that they don't have kids is a recurring point because the point is anchored in the idea that these guys fuck, but they don't have kids. What's the deal? That's the central mystery of the Christmas Chronicles Part 2, the central narrative tension. But Even outside of that, you have like Christmas movies like the Christmas Switch series starring Vanessa Hudgens, which opened up and again had another kind of like the Christmas Switch switched again, which came out recently as well. And we'll talk about that because there's a shared universe thing at work here, which I want to get into. And then there's also
a controversial shared universe, if I'm remembering correctly.
A black hole, a recursive black hole of like Netflix's Christmas continuity. And even things like, say, A Christmas Night, like Netflix and Dolly Parton's Christmas on the Square, to give another example from this year alone. Like, so Netflix are very good at like generating lots of content. And what's interesting is that while a lot of their content is forgettable, average and generic, and like a lot of their content is algorithm generated, which is very much so you end up with things like, say, you watch Tidy Up at Marie Kondo, so you watch Get Organized with the home edit, or you watch The Great British Baking Show, so enjoy Sugar Rush or Nailed It. You enjoyed Chef's Table, so here enjoy Street Food, Taco Chronicles, The Flavorful Origins. Netflix are very good of, you like this thing, you might like this off-brand equivalent starring slightly cheaper actors. I think like one of the is it like The Open House is a movie that Netflix famously paid $8 million for at film festivals, despite it being terrible, because they wanted to have something to recommend when watchers got to the end of 13 Reasons Why and wanted something with the same actor in it, so they would just click OK. And I think that like that generally doesn't make for good movies. Like, algorithmically generated content does not make for an engrossing action movie or thriller or drama or prestige piece, I would argue. However, the Christmas movie is the sweet spot for exactly the reason that Matt mentioned, which is that, like, it lands exactly in the right place. You go into a Christmas movie and you know exactly what you want from it. You know exactly what beats it's going to hit. You know exactly how tense it's supposed to get before it pulls back. You know exactly how much conflict you can have between characters before it becomes uncomfortable. You know that you have to hit a certain amount of minutes. You have to allocate screen time accordingly. And, like, Netflix and the algorithm are designed for this. This is what they were built for. And so you watch movies like A Christmas Prince and you're like, I see now. Like, I see what the Netflix algorithm's ideal is. I see how it can be used for good. I understand that, like, I understand that it's not an artistic ideal of itself, but I'm also now have had the galaxy brain take that sometimes in some situations, the algorithm can give me exactly what I want. And I think the Christmas Prince movies in particular are exactly that.
Interesting. Like, it's, we're going to balance, a lot of cynicism and film talk here because like any streaming service's primary goal is audience retention, putting out just enough content to make sure that people don't unsubscribe, because it takes extra steps to unsubscribe. And as long as you keep feeding them the lowest common denominator, they will not go through the extra effort to unsubscribe. And so, yes, like you don't know any of these actors in A Christmas Prince. You know exactly what's going to happen, but they're all pleasant enough holiday romantic comedies. Ugh.
Was it the Netflix Twitter account called out 18 people who had watched A Christmas Prince 53 days in a row?
Yeah.
Yes.
And asked if they needed help.
Yes, that's right.
Even Netflix was like, this is maybe too much. Take a step back.
I'm glad you're getting in the spirit, but...
I think, we were talking about this a little bit before we were recording, which is like Netflix has a golden opportunity here just to have a shuffle button as far as like Christmas parties and all of their Christmas movies. Like, yeah, put on something in the background while we have a Christmas party. I'll look over and see a Christmas tree. Everything will be fine.
I'll also say, you listed... listing off all those Christmas specials, but there are even more. It goes deep, like, and
Darren
also
mentioned only the top of the list.
Those are the top tier.
Those are the ones with names, and there's like, the Christmas bike that's leaning against the wall, and the Christmas car that you notice driving down the street. Like, it goes super deep, and they have ones made by Netflix, and then they've got basically all the Hallmark ones, and you got to feel a little bad for Hallmark, because they originated this, and Netflix just swooped in like no one's talking. And Hallmark still makes those too. I know this because my wife puts them on to watch while she's working sometimes. So like,
Hallmark didn't have the infrastructure,
movies, and they're just like a bit, but it works for that too, because they have the same structure and the notes, and yet I will say, I think the Christmas Prince,
How dare you get the name wrong?
My apologies. There's definitely a better quality to it than others in the genre, I might say. I think the cast is a little more charming. I don't know. I feel
they
like
paid the real money for Alice Cridge and Rose McIver. No,
right.
No, I mean, like it is. Like, you could tell that the cast, like, to be fair, the cast are not like A-list cast. It's very much like, it is a step down from getting Oscar winner Forrest Whitaker to do Jingle Jangle, or like everybody's favorite 80s action star Kurt Russell to play Santa Claus on the sax in the Christmas Chronicles. But it is a step up from the background kind of noise of like, well, the Christmas Channel or the Hallmark Channel. And in fact, actually, I did, because I'm a professional, I did research for this podcast, and I looked at like the MCPA Wikipedia article. I only did so much research because I'm only so much of a professional, but you can tell that there's somebody in the MPCA offices whose job it is to update their Wikipedia and make them sound as respectable as possible, because they actually, like, on their Wikipedia page list the actors with which they've worked, including notable performers like Vanessa Hudgens and Rob Lowe, the great thespians of our time, as if to put like the sheen on the Christmas movies that they make, just so you know that they make the top tier ones. They're the ones with sprinkles on.
No, and I think like looking at, like, you know, specifically the Christmas Prince, which is, you know, what we're focusing on here as our jumping off point to the glut, who stars Rose McIver, who I always thought looked very familiar. Not an A-lister, but a working actress. If you look at her credits, the things she has been in make absolute sense. She started off her career as the other kid from the piano. She was the yellow Power Rangers for Power Rangers RPM. She got early TV work in the Hercules and Xena TV shows, which I loved. Like, you know, she's out there working. Not the greatest, but working. I think we get, as you move down the list as far as like who's top of the credits, the quality of actor gets worse and worse. The people playing Rose's friends, or Amber's, the two actors playing Amber's friends, they could have used a couple extra takes.
Yeah,
I feel sorry for Rudy. Rudy's the real tragedy here, because he gets swapped out. This is her father.
Oh, yes.
The most New York guy imaginable, to the point where like you feel like it's a travesty that you get to the end of the trilogy and he never says, "Hey, I'm walking here." But like they swap out the actor in between like the first and second movie, and I'm like, how did you tell that he was a weak link? Like, what clued you in that this was the squeaky wheel that needed fixing?
Like, he wasn't a weak link. Like, his real job as a diner owner wouldn't let him travel for the second and third movie.
Yeah, fair point.
That's what it was.
What's best is that they wanted to hear so much that cookie cutterness that they were like, okay, we need the best girlfriend and we need the gay friend, but wait, she's traveling to another country. Okay, so for most of the movie, these backup characters are just gonna be on tablets, right? Like, they're just like, and then it's in the second and third, it's even worse, and like, so like, there's entire like conversations that are just two people looking at a screen for extended periods of time because they need these cookie cutter things, but their plot won't allow for that.
and to be fair, like, to give like a Christmas Prince a modicum of like respect and kind of like acknowledgement, at least the direction knows what it's doing. So like, when you get those, they're in there because they're expected to be sequences of characters talking over Zoom. At least the camera is kind of slowly pushing in, as opposed to awkwardly positioned over another character's shoulder. There's a moment where like King Richard runs out into the Christmas hedge maze, and the camera just whirls around him like he's in the Bourne Supremacy. And I was like, you guys are really trying. I admire that. I realize like the stakes are probably a bit lower than you're selling them here, in that I think he finds that Amber has gone to the ski lodge and she's fine. But I admire that they do like the push in low angle whirling camera around him as he searches desperately in the hedge maze. I'm like, I admire that you did what you're doing to the extent that you did it.
They checked all the boxes, and they checked them in lovely calligraphy, is I guess what we can say here. The more interesting thing to me is as they move on in the series, because obviously A Christmas Prince 1 is very, very standard rom-com. But they get together at the end. Shocker, right? So A Christmas Prince 2, The Royal Wedding, they can't have your standard rom-com plot. So what are they going to fill in the gaps with? And I'll tell you, I understand that it got a ton of flack for its subplot about, union labor laws and like
modernization and democratic deficit and
and tax incentives for local businesses. But I also I'm glad that they filled it with something, and
Very true.
It seemed to work with her character, with Amber's journalist character, like battling between her roles as a real journalist and a princess.
Is she a real journalist? Again, like she's introduced in the first one working for Now Beat, which is another, like Rudy, the most New York publication imaginable, in that it sounds like a command. Now Beat. It's like, do I want this paper? Read it and get out. Pay it and get out. But I mean, again, and the journalistic ethics involved in the Christmas Prince series, which are kind of a bit iffy, where it's like, okay, well, she's apparently working for a fashion blog that can afford to send her overseas to a small European nation to cover not a coronation, to be clear, but a press conference that might possibly announce when the coronation's taking place. By the way, as somebody who has worked in media over the past couple of years, I want to live in the Christmas Prince universe. I want to be I want the Escapist to send me to Eldovia to cover, I don't know, the announcement that a film festival might be taking place in a couple of weeks, but we don't know. There's a moment at the press conference where a reporter sticks up his hand, and can you tell us when the press conference to announce the coronation will take place? And the guy at the press conference to announce the press conference is like, no, we can't tell you that right now. And it's like, wow, okay. But I kind of I admire that the movie doesn't delve any deeper into this stuff than it needs to. So there's a moment at the end of the movie where, again, you can tell that nobody who's working on these movies has any knowledge of how monarchies work, because there's this big recurring thing, we need to send you over there because we don't know what's going to happen if he doesn't accept the crown, if he abdicates. What will possibly happen? And it's like have you guys never watched the King's Speech, or you could probably just ask a lawyer, or talk to the embassy. I like to imagine that they know what will happen if the king just doesn't show up for the coronation. But I kind of, again, it's the kind of just committing and going for it bit. Because in the first one, you have the coronation ceremony, which of course takes place on Christmas Day, which manages to be simultaneously in great rom-com tradition. And this is one of those wonderfully elegant, the algorithm dictates it things, which I admire. Manages to be in no succession a coronation, a Christmas gathering, and a wedding somehow simultaneously. Because it's if anybody knows why this man cannot be king, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. And I kind of adore that when the coronation takes place, at this time, Richard has been forced to abdicate, and we won't go too much into the depth of it, but they're going to crown Simon, his ne'er-do-well cousin, who, by the way, is the breakout character, I would argue, of the trilogy.
Absolutely.
And they're in midstream. I love that they're in midstream on the coronation on Christmas Day, presumably having gathered all the heads of state and all the ministers and all the official people who are necessary to validate this. And then it breaks through, and it's no, you shouldn't crown Simon. You should actually crown Richard too instead. And without missing a beat, the ceremony just swaps out protagonists. It's do we need to repeat the stuff that we said for Simon and maybe sub in Richard? No, just pick up where you left off. It's all good.
It was using its visual language so strongly, they were mid crown put on, which we can only assume once the crown's on, that's it. It's done.
Deal is done. Yeah.
Super glued.
Oh, it didn't touch your hair, doesn't count. And our hero Amber, runs in and says, wait, I have proof. And it's one, how did you get in here? Do we not have security in our government buildings in Aldova, right?
They were all attending the ceremony. Have you seen how many extras this movie can afford? It's the politest coup ever. There's the moment where Simon announces that he's going to take the throne. And I love that everybody just politely claps. Because it's we have no... How do you react when this happens? It's well, we have 12 extras and they're not classically trained. So just tell them to clap. Tell him to look happy. Tell him that he's announced that there's a champagne course or something. I don't know.
Right.
What's great is is they set up like this clearly like very high level, which works in the first film, and then their idea, like you said, their ideas for the next film on this monarchy are to go as deep as they can into it, right? It's like it's very superficial, and they're like, well, you know what? We're just gonna have to do a deep dive into the politics of this monarchy, and then their budgets, and their, you know, how things are elected, and how the entire country's run. That's the only solution forward here.
And my favorite part of that is, though, like, while they're doing that, they still manage to keep it somehow incredibly vague. So you have, like, the big recurring plot in the second one is King Richard's modernization initiative. A disaster? Ask the local Aldovian press. And, like, the only details that we get of his modernization initiative, it isn't that he's going to raise taxes. It isn't that he's going to sell state properties. It's that he's going to strengthen infrastructure, schools, techs. It's smart. And it, again, like, it's the most vague and generic. Like, it's like, sure, he's doing, like, modernization stuff. And you can tell, like, it's very much like, and here's my hot take, right? My hot take for The Christmas Prince is, for the first Christmas Prince, which was released, I believe, in December 2017, right? So it is about a mysterious kingdom that has long remained hidden from the world. It is about a character from outside that journeys into that and is exposed to its strange customs. The beloved old king has just died. The son is not sure that he can lead. The son has a tech-savvy younger sister who is very good with technology. But at the same time, his cousin, who has been abroad, mysteriously comes back and makes a bold claim on the throne.
Don't say it.
Is A Christmas Prince Hallmark Black Panther? That's my question.
I think you've scientifically proven it just then.
It all fits. Every single part of it fits, including the overall theme of like tradition versus like being open to the world. Yeah. The mother, you know, both, you know, old queen characters being like, you know, supportive rocks, but also like open to change. Jesus Christ, Darren, you did it.
Wow.
You did it. So then what we can only assume is that, you know, Black Panther 2's major plot points will be about tax incentives for local businesses.
And unions ruining Christmas, which is like, again, like, I'm not going to claim that like A Christmas Prince 2 has a cohesive set of politics or anything like that, but I find it fascinating to kind of like contemplate what you take away from A Christmas, what the movie intends for you to take away from it in a broader sense beyond, well, these people look pretty and it's Christmassy and that's all you want. But like, because the unions are like stirring up like dissent and chaos and like, and it turns out that actually the reason that like King Richard's plan isn't working isn't because, you know, he's out of touch. It isn't because as a monarch he hasn't had to live a life that's put him in touch with the common man. Instead, the reason that this plan isn't working is because his presumably democratically elected head of state, the prime minister, has been embezzling money and living large off the public finances. Which
No. You've mixed up your old white men.
Oh, apologies,
my friend. So like, one, it is that he's out of touch because Amber only figures out the ruse when she actually goes to the bar and talks to the common man.
Walter, yes, the guy who shouts, Walter!
Walter! It's not the prime minister of Aldova that is embezzling. It is his uncle, his rich baron uncle, who has set up shell companies using Aldovan addresses to siphon public funds out of the country. So it's a shockingly like woke anti-rich white guy movie. Like, yes, public projects, yes, union jobs, all of these things are fantastic. It's the old capitalists that are the problem.
And the reintroduction of Simon wearing the farmer's cap with the low angle, like hanging out with the protesters, which I kind of love as well. But again, at the same time, you have the idea of like the dungeon at the end of the film, where it turns out, like, again, paying off that wonderful recurring joke that happens in the first two. And then in the third one, because of course they do, they go to the dungeon in the third one. But like at the end, it's revealed that the castle does actually have a dungeon. And apparently it's filled with, as you point out, old relatives who have wronged the family in some way, shape or form. Because who has time for due process? I was really disappointed when they went down to the dungeon in 3 that like there wasn't the skeleton of the old guy just kind of like lying in the background.
They forgot to feed him.
Yeah. And like, 3 has very similar notes, because like a general like character arc for Amber is, balancing, her life as an independent woman and her responsibilities as a princess and or queen and or, being part of this weird society. And that really comes to a head for A Christmas Prince 3, The Royal Baby, when... Now, let me, and I watched it this morning, and I'm going to try to remember all of the plot points, so bear with me. They have a long-standing tradition of re-upping a centuries-old treaty with not their neighbor country, but their neighbor's neighbor's country, if I'm remembering the map correctly.
Panglia, yes. So they don't believe they share a direct border with Panglia, but it is close.
They don't,
It was Silk Road trading, I believe, is what was motivated it, which again is a wonderful bit of world building, which makes no sense whatsoever. It's like, I love that they went to the effort of being like, so theoretically, if they wanted to have an alliance with an Asian country, what would it be about? I don't know, the Silk Road? That sounds like it's historical. Let's put that in, yeah?
That went through Asia, right?
I remember reading about that in 8th grade geography. Absolutely. Because again, everything about these movies is very surface level. Like nothing matters because it's a rom-com. Like, but it's great.
My favorite moment in the third one is like, so what happens if we don't renew this treaty with Panglia by midnight tonight? It's like, well, technically we would return to a state of war, and that's meant to be like a shocking moment. But then Princess Emily points out, but since neither country has a standing army, I don't think it's that big a deal. And it's like that is precisely the right level of stakes for a movie like this.
But then they continue with the stakes, which is apparently the country of Aldova is indebted to
Panglia is what I
Panglia, right? Like Panglia has loaned Aldova billions of dollars, and because of the tax initiatives from the second movie, they're actually working their way to pay off. But if the treaty is broken, this treaty that everyone agrees is purely ceremonial. By the way, if the treaty is broken, like it might once again like mean higher taxes for Aldovans or whatever. I guess what I'm saying here is like all of this stuff doesn't matter because at the end of the day, it's about like having a wedding, having a baby, playing board games with your friends, family togetherness. But Christmas. I love it that they've put in the effort to be like, no, these are the stakes. Trust me, no, they're real stakes.
There's a moment in the third film where they pause and they show you a map, which presumably is from 1419. And by the way, I love that it is exactly 600 years to 2019 when the movie was released. It's not like roughly 600 years, not about 6 centuries ago. No, precisely 6 centuries ago, midnight tomorrow night is when we signed this deal.
Exactly.
But it's very much like, I love that they show you a map, and on it has, again, it's the biggest glimpse into the world of the Christmas Prince that you've had to date, and it gives you this map of Eastern Europe. And again, there's so much to unpack there, because again, if you want to be a nerd, you're like, so wait, is Aldovia exists kind of roughly? I had assumed from the first couple of films that it was Scandinavian, because obviously we're there at Christmas, so there's snow and there's skiing and there's tobogganing. And I mean, obviously we don't see it during the rest of the year, but I had imagined that it was like that all the time because it was a Christmas kingdom, but apparently not. So apparently it is actually closer to the Balkans region, and apparently it's much more where the Austro-Hungarian Empire would have been. Which makes me wonder what the Cold War was like for Aldovia in terms of being positioned between East and West. How did it stay out of like the 2 world wars in the middle of the century? Was it neutral? I think Matt suggested that it was like Switzerland. That was kind of your take or your suggestion on it.
It feels Switzerlandy because there's a lot of the money discussion going on. If they were in the EU, would not be going on theoretically, right?
Sure.
So like I feel like they remain neutral throughout everything and have not joined the EU and maybe even lean more towards but everyone's very white, so like it's hard to like see them sort of leaning more towards the Turkish side of things and that side of the boat. Like I don't know, like it's a very strange, but I don't think they're part of the EU.
I love the idea that what made King
Richard
the First, which is King Richard's father here, such a good king, is that he remembered where all the Nazi gold was. It's like, Aldovia never had to worry about financial crises before my dad died. He just went down to the dungeon and came back with a shed load of gold that we never asked any questions about. Now I have to worry about progressive taxation policies, despite the fact I'm a monarch, apparently, and that's in my remit as a governor. Which I kind of love. And again, like,
by the way, but no, I think you've actually just solved it. Like, that makes a ton of sense, where it's like before the reign of King Richard II, our Christmas prince, if you will, the titular Christmas prince, that we can only assume this was an idyllic country that was cash rich, probably because of one, Nazi gold, and two, several people fleeing to the country after World War II for easy hiding, because everyone there is beautiful and white.
And it goes even better than that, because like a core plot point of Christmas Prince 1 is that like when King Richard died, he didn't tell his family anything. He didn't make sure that they had any information about how to run the country in his absence. There was no preparation for transition of power with the death of King Richard I, which again, like there's a key plot point which involves like finding a note that's hidden in a giant acorn that was presented as a gift to his wife, which is adorable, but also is not a good way to run a country, to be absolutely clear. So I can buy the idea that like King Richard I was very much like King Richard I was a more conventional monarch in the style of something like The Crown or Game of Thrones, and it's just like he was so good at hiding all that crap under the table that by the time Richard II comes along, having like traveled the world and disowned his kingdom, he's like, well, what the hell? How am I supposed to be a prince? It's like, I've only watched Hallmark movies. That's how we're going to do it. What I do want to point out though, on the map, you can see that Belgravia appears on the map, and this is where things get really interesting about the Netflix Christmas movie. Because there's been some speculation that Netflix might be building towards the MCU of Christmas movies. Because obviously, and again, this is where things get dicey. In the movie Christmas Night, which stars Vanessa Hudgens, there is a reference to the Kingdom of Aldovia. So we know that those two movies exist in shared continuity. We also know, as of the end of Christmas Switched Again, which features a cameo from the royal family from The Christmas Prince, and from the reference to Belgravia, which is on the map itself, that a Christmas Switch and a Christmas Prince exists in the same universe. And let's pause, just pause on that, right? Because the premise of a Christmas Switch, the first Christmas Switch movie, is that there are two people identical to Vanessa Hudgens in the shared universe. The premise of the second one is that there are three. However, if you go from a Christmas Switch to a Christmas Prince up to Christmas Night, also starring Vanessa Hudgens, that means that there is a fourth Vanessa Hudgens doppelganger in this shared universe, just waiting to be reunited like the Infinity Stones. But anyway, I digress.
And it gets more controversial from there, because I believe in the Christmas Switch 1, Vanessa Hudgens is watching a Christmas Prince on TV. Yeah. She's watching the movie of someone who exists in her real life.
Starring the same actors playing the same roles, because it's not a documentary. The footage you see is not like, it's not like watching The Crown. It's not like watching, sort of like a documentary about Princess Diana. She is watching the literal movie that we are watching. So unless it's like some sort of weird 1960s Marvel Comics thing where the Marvel Comics actually get published in continuity in Marvel Comics, which is great, because I like to imagine maybe that's how King Richard II like solves some of his deficit problems. He's like, well, look, I'll make a Netflix movie in which I'll play myself, reenacting key scenes from my courtship and this financial crisis.
No, that would make perfect sense within the universe, because of course Amber, the Christmas queen, the Christmas princess in all of these movies, is most famous as a blogger, blogging about her daily life, as Queen of Aldovia. And so it's not just him like giving away the rights, it's her selling her story to Netflix to help. That'll be like the
in-universe explanation.
That will be like the fourth one when they're like, the country's running out of money. We don't have any money. Like, and so she's like, I can sell this, and that's how it all makes sense.
Maybe they're building little inconsistencies in over the years so that at some point they need a Crisis on Infinite Christmases in order to.
Oh yeah. Tell me that like the cliffhanger, the teaser trailer doesn't end with Kurt Russell getting out of a sleigh saying. Ho, ho, ho.
Like coming through one of his Christmas portals to be like, like, you're needed. No, in a different Christmas.
You're about to become part of a much larger Christmas.
Can I just say that I will be there with a ticket in hand, opening day. I will be your biggest fan, Netflix, if you can make that happen. If you can make a shared Christmas universe, I am so there. Well, there's no more. There's no higher place we can go to that. What I will say to wrap up our Christmas Prince segment is that I genuinely think that they are fun watches. They are fine Christmas movies. I'm a big fan of rom-coms in general. I like the formula. And I think they do a great job of hitting all of the beats really nicely. And I think it's worth your time if you're a rom-com fan like me. It's worth your time.
Well, I mean, I think like this Christmas, people are spending a lot more time indoors and are kind of locked in. So I would have difficulty recommending this as a must-watch kind of Christmas movie. But like in terms of being like something you can stick on ambiently in the background, dip in and out of, enjoy, and like if you are in the mood for something that is very Christmas fluffy, then yes, that like this is pretty much it. Like, I mean, I maybe go with Elf instead if you wanted something that is like actually actively good. But if you want something like,
if you want something you haven't seen 100 times,
fair
this
point.
This is all.
And the Netflix algorithm will have you sorted after that.
Yeah, if you want to permanently bork your suggested movie titles,
watch 3 of them in the space of 24 hours.
In a row.
I love, by the way, apparently there are 82 Christmas movies releasing on streaming services this year, which is quite a stat. Like,
Which
again,
is not enough.
That is the hottest take.
No, but like I think you're, like you said, in the background. I know, like I watched most of these movies like in another tab while also scrolling through social media, and I'm still able to pick up all of the beats, all of the points. I'm still able to like follow along with the movies. So much fun. Adorable little movies.
Yeah. And again, like my favorite thing is like just writing down random little details from scenes. Like, is Rudy hitting on the Queen? ? I have written down in my notes here. Or glass of water drinking at outdoor press conference. Good choice, I have written somewhere else. Because there's a moment where Richard's doing an outdoor press conference and it's not going okay. So he picks up, because again, it's one of those things where the Netflix algorithm's like, okay, how do we show that a character's having a bad time at a press conference or interview? We have them nervously sip a glass of water, and it's like, where did that glass of water come from? He's doing an outdoor press conference. Why did he assume he was going to speak so long that he would be drinking from a glass of water doing it? I love the fact that they are so perfectly engineered down to those little details.
Oh, every character in the movie finds their partner within the 3 movies, right?
Yes.
Like,
They
obviously
pair off.
your Christmas Prince finds our main character. Both of Amber's friends get paired off. One to an eccentric designer, and the other to the evil cousin, who, as it turns out, has a heart of gold. Oh, he's not evil at all. The Queen.
Yeah, he's very much Loki. Like, that's it. It's again. We're talking in terms of like Black Panther and MCU references. He is exactly Loki. Like, again, he's the tall, dark British dude who is occasionally sarcastic, but never does anything so terrible that you don't think he's kind of yummy underneath it all.
No, like he wants power, but he's also okay just just being there to help.
Yeah.
Like he's exactly Loki. We can only,
as you point out, Jack, he
assume-
gets woke in the second movie. He's hanging out with strikers and protesters and union workers, which, like, I want that arc. I want Simon's like gap between the 2 movies. I want like a tie-in comic or a spin-off series that follows Simon on his journey from the man who was almost king to the man wearing the farmer's cap saying, "Where are our wages? Industrialization now." Like, that's
because he gets married at the end of Christmas Prince 1 in an effort to steal the throne, and he goes through a messy divorce, like picking up after his messy divorce from a Christmas Prince 1. I would love that.
Yeah.
And that way, by the way, Netflix, this is how you squeeze these movies out of the Christmas season, because that movie doesn't need to take place in Christmas, right?
You have like a seasonal theme, so it's like every episode takes place on a seasonal holiday. So it's like Easter or like Martin Luther King Day or Halloween or Thanksgiving,
Like,
and it gives
that
you
can
like
be
his
the Arbor Day episode. It'll be great.
yeah. And it gives you like his journey through the year. This is amazing. Because again, he has to, because it's one Christmas after another. Because it's been exactly a year between the 2 movies. Yes! This is perfect!
This is perfect. We have the widowed old queen of Aldovia,
Played by Alice
who is
Critch.
very clearly paired off with like the older page. Like they have lusty eyes towards each other. They are making faces. You know, you
Somebody's
have, like,
going tobogganing.
you have like the stuffy older lady who's very prim and proper, and she pairs off. Like everyone pairs off because that's what happens in a rom-com. It's everything you expect. And you know what? Sometimes like having that consistency is really nice.
Well, at Christmas, like that's like arguably one of the whole points of Christmas is its stability, and particularly in this year, which has been nothing if not unstable, random, arbitrary, and chaotic. Like I would argue that like the appeal of the Netflix algorithm making Christmas movies is, I know what I want from a Christmas movie. I want a movie where everybody pairs off at the end. I want a movie where the stakes are never higher than, well, maybe we'll end up at war, but nobody has an army, so it doesn't really matter. Like that's the pitch that, or maybe the technical agreement won't come into effect, but we seem to be on good terms and are playing party games with them anyway. So I can't imagine that things are going to escalate that much worse if this deal isn't signed. But it would be nice if it was. You know, it would be like really cool if it was. But such is life, I guess.
Yeah.
It's Christmas.
No,
It's great.
it's Christmas. Happy Christmas, everyone.
Economic
no.
fluctuation is a fact of life. Sorry, I'm just reading from my notes here.
I think it speaks to the world building they've done that we've talked about this more than Star Wars now. Like,
It's two sides of the same coin, I feel, where it's superficial morals over a genre. One is spaceships and lasers, the other is, you know, broken promises and kisses at the end. Like it's all the same BS. In both cases, I don't want to watch a Senate meeting happen. A little prequel jab there.
The
Just putting that out
yeah.
there. Yeah. Just a prequel jab. If I
The
can
Christmas
get it in.
prequels will be nothing but Aldovia.
This will be explaining how Aldovia became a monarchy, where apparently the regent sets tax policy. Which is amazing. Like apparently, like the entire cabinet and prime minister just exist to rubber stamp whatever the royals are thinking, which is great. Because I am watching like The Crown in parallel with this. So The Crown is really great, and it's really clever look at like British monarchy and history and the mechanics that kind of drive these things and the relationship that exists. It's kind of great watching The Christmas Prince because it very much, you can tell that it's informed. They're very much meant to be British royals. There's a point in the second movie where I think Richard actually says, "Keep calm and carry on for now." The fact that like most of them are played by actors with British accents. Alice Critch, who's South African, does a very soft, like she at one stage starts dropping her oars in case you don't get that she's doing the soft palate royal thing. But like the fact that like, and even little details like the pregnancy, the royal baby, which corresponded with obviously the kind of buzz around the pregnancy, around the royal baby, and the obsession that there was with kind of William and Kate and Harry and Meghan and things like that as well. And the fact like the debate over and again, this is one of the things where, is Darren reading too much into this movie? I probably am, but let's go with it anyway. But like things like say the argument over her blog. In both is it the second movie or the third movie? Because they've all started to bleed together when you reach a certain point. But there's
the second movie is when they censor her blog.
They censor her blog, which very much feels like it's playing on the famous story of the royal family taking Meghan Markle off Instagram. Because that was beneath the rank of a queen. And I kind of love the idea that the movies are so wired into that stuff. Like, again, this is like again, and part of me, it's that American fascination with British royalty that you have, but it's like, it's the most, as you point out, it's the most surface level sort of stuff. Because
nothing matters. Nothing mattered. Like, I want to say in the third one is when the other queen, the queen of Panglia, mentions that, like, you know, it's fashionable for princes to find commoners, right? Like a very specific reference to Meghan Markle, right?
Yeah.
And I think she even says American commoners or something like that. So no, like, but it's all, none of it matters. It's all surface level. And we're just there for when everyone's happy in the end, because everyone's happy in the end, except for the bad guys who go in the dungeon. And you know, like I said, I think delving into the specifics of the world is fun because there are no stakes whatsoever.
And it makes no sense. And like the more you think about it, the more wonderful it becomes. Because again, that's very Christmassy. The whole point of Christmas is that nothing makes sense. A fat man squeezes down your chimney, for example. You know, magic. You know, he knows if you've been bad or good. He's been watching you 24/7 all year, but it's not creepy somehow. That sort of stuff is like the logic of Christmas. So I kind of love that. Like the politics of the Christmas Prince are what if politics, but Christmas. So it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they don't make sense. It doesn't matter that there's no logic underpinning it. It just looks...
There's rules. We're just not going to look into them too much.
Yeah. There's a moment in the second one where, like, I think that, you know, they like, the stuffy old assistant, the queen, is like, an established set of protocol exists to guide every decision. Despite the fact that, based on the entire premise of the 3 movies, Aldovia does not seem to have any protocols for anything that happens vaguely outside, like, the normal remit of being king. Particularly when it happens at Christmas, but it all works itself out.
Because it all happens at Christmas. Yeah. Everything happens at Christmas, including the birth of the new child. Everything happens at Christmas.
Does he get one present or 2?
Oh, yeah. As someone who has a December birthday, it's 1. It's always 1, and it's always disappointing.
It's never good enough to equal 2.
Oh, right. Because, well, no, and it's, by the way, it's never 2. No, this is for Christmas and your birthday every year. It's always disappointing. Hold on, now you just gotta have a cry.
Why does no one love me?
Why does no one love me enough to give me things? Give me things. Yeah, no, it'll always be 1 present. So there, that was it. That was a fantastic conversation on the expanded and intricate universe of A Christmas Prince. And we also talked about some other thing. It doesn't matter because A Christmas Prince is the only thing that matters. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Matthew, so much. It was lovely talking to both of you.
Thank you.
And I'm always bad at wrapping these up, so I'll just say that I was once again Jack Packard.
And I was Darren Mooney.
Wait.
Line.
I think goodbye. All right. Oh man, now I'm bad at wrapping it up.
Perfect.
Just cut out that middle part.
No, I absolutely will not, because it was so good. And this was the Escapist Movie Podcast. Thanks for watching and/or listening. Bye.
Bye.